Hi Homeworthy, I'm Lucy. Welcome to my little cottage in Wiltshire. Come on in and have a look around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hello, I'm Lucy Mantle. I'm a content creator. Welcome to my home here in England. So we originally came across our cottage after looking for about 4 years. We were kind of looking for a renovation project, and when we walked into this home, it on the outside looked perfect and beautiful, and it didn't look like there was an awful lot for us to do. But after we'd completed and moved in, we slowly started to notice that there was a lot of things we needed to do. We also wanted to make our kind of own mark on the cottage and bring it a bit more to life. We had to do a lot of different renovations, such as a full kitchen renovation. We had to sort out a damp problem we had there, and we had to redo everything. So I learnt to plaster, I learnt to put cabinets and things in. It was quite a feat. We've completely renovated the rest of the cottage as well. So the fireplace, that was something else that we did. Originally it was a 1970s fireplace, but unfortunately after living here for a couple of years, it actually crumbled away and fell out of the wall. So we got local builders in and they exposed the most gorgeous fireplace, which we now have lovingly restored, and I think it just looks beautiful, and it's really given kind of a heart back to our living room and the cottage. We've decorated throughout in a kind of whimsical, cottagey fairytale vibe. So we've got florals everywhere, dainty kind of wallpapers, and tried to make it a little brighter inside because cottages can traditionally be quite dark. We're quite lucky with our upstairs because it's got vaulted ceilings, which means that my husband doesn't bang his head because he's quite tall, but also it's light and airy and fresh, and it feels really beautiful and cozy at the same time, which I think is really important when you are living in a home, but also looking to kind of decorate it sympathetically to kind of the age of the property. So we're in my front garden now, and I love this space so much. It was really important for us to have a front garden when we were looking for a cottage, and this one just jumped to me. It's got a lovely long path, and I think the front of the cottage just looks so picturesque and beautiful. When we got the cottage, this was painted. It didn't look like this. So we've now got pretty kind of like brick frames around the windows, and the wisteria over here, which was originally at my grandma's house. And when my mum said, "Would you like that?" I just jumped at the chance to have that. I think it's really added a kind of nice, bringing the outside in. It sort of brings the garden in more as you're kind of walking towards the cottage and then do enter the cottage. I have planted a lot here, so pretty much everything you see here wasn't here. The only thing that was here is a kind of rose that's kind of in the bush that's coming outwards. I've put some hydrangeas in, so we've got here a hydrangea Annabelle, which everyone loves and will hopefully bush up this space, and in a year or two we'll hopefully have lots more flowers on. I've got probably over 40 roses in this garden. So they're all David Austin as well. So I've got lots of pink ones and white ones. They're kind of the colours that I went with. It's not the best time to see roses, but I think you can kind of get a feel for how kind of gorgeous and picturesque this can look when they are all out in bloom. I've got a clematis going across and over the front door, and I love it because it sort of buries the cottage in nature a little bit, and it's the first sign of flowers and spring. It has beautiful delicate pink flowers on, and then it goes into this really lovely foliage which kind of leads us into summer and autumn as it starts to colour. I've got 2 limelight hydrangeas out the front. One of them's seen better days. It's been a bit hot here in England. We've not had an awful lot of rain, but they are stunning and they colour over time and they age really nicely, and I just think they look just gorgeous. The other thing that we've done out the front is restore the kind of windows on the cottage. We did all of this ourselves. So my husband has jumped up the ladder, pulled all the windows out, and we have been sanding and painting and filling. Some of them were so rotten that you could just put your hand through the wood into the cottage. So we've transformed that, and I think they look so much better and hopefully have a couple more years left in them. I've painted the front door Daisy Fields. It's a gorgeous blue. It's got a really, really pretty wreath on it as well. I like to add little touches like that to the home and the cottage. I think it just kind of elevates it and gives it a little bit more of a kind of an idea of what the inside of the home may or may not be like. So when we first moved into the property, we actually came here with a 3-week-old baby, our daughter. We had bought the house in the July and we moved in the September. In that time, I obviously had my daughter and we really had to kind of get the place ready. It was unfortunately left in a bit of a state when we came to look and move in. So that's why it's taken a little bit of time for us to finally kind of make it a home and live here. We had to put new flooring down, we had to sort out damp problems throughout the cottage downstairs, and one of the main things that we did that has just transformed the cottage into what some people like to call the holiday cottage from the film is to take off the paint that was on the front of the cottage. Now that was quite a big job. We had to obviously get planning permission and we had to have people from historical I think there was a lady that came and she dealt with like the history of like properties and things, and she had to check that it was okay for us to take this off. So we did a patch test, and underneath the paint that was on the front of the cottage was flint and the most gorgeous delicate brickwork that kind of runs around the windows and the front porch of the house as well. And in doing that, it also released a lot of moisture from the house, so we don't get as much damp as we did. The house as well feels warmer because it's not having cold air trapped in the winter. And I feel like it's just brought the whole house to life, especially when you're kind of walking up the front path. Another big thing that I've done is the garden. Now, I know a lot of people might not think of the garden as kind of part of the home, but for me that is so integral, and I think that can be seen with the kind of reference throughout of florals and bringing the outside in. A lot of the dried flowers that are around the house you'll see are from my garden. I'm a huge gardener, so when we moved in it was a bit of a shock to me to find that there were a lot of gorgeous old roses, but at the same time I don't think the garden had been touched for, gosh, maybe about 15 years. So everything was kind of cut back to basics. It was all cut back to floor level and chopped down, and in that time over the last 3 years we've let everything grow up. I installed on the front of the cottage a huge wisteria, which was actually my late grandmother's, and we brought that over from her house, and that now lives on the front of our cottage. This year was the first year that we ever got flowers on it, and it just makes me so happy to kind of think about that and see that, because that's something that she would never have seen. So it kind of feels like it's brought the cottage to life, I think. We have done pretty much everything. We've stripped doors back, so we've got 2 original doors in the cottage, internal, and we had the paint stripped off of those. That was a big job. We did try to do it ourselves, but yeah, it's a lot more difficult than it kind of looks, especially when you've got goodness knows how many years of paint all over the doors. We've had new old cottage doors, if that makes sense, put in around the cottage as well, because some of the doors that would have been original were unfortunately not here anymore. We've put built-in units in different parts of the house. So we've got one in our living room, which is for our TV and our books. And then upstairs in the bedroom, when we moved in, there was an old built-in wardrobe, but it was quite rotten, and it actually had an infestation of carpet moths, like in the back of it. So we had all of that taken out, and We had the carpet laid up to it but not inside of it to prevent that from happening again. And the way that it's been kind of built into the room, it looks like it's kind of always been there. And we had it done in a white colour, so it's kind of fresh and vibrant and keeps the room bright as well. That's something that's been really kind of important to us. So this is kind of the heart of the home for us. This is our living room. We spend a lot of time here, especially in the winter when it's really cold outside. I love how kind of cosy it feels, and because it's not a big space, I've kind of maximalised on that in a way with kind of the patterns that you can see in here. So we've got beautiful sofas from Sofas and Stuff. And we had this gorgeous, gorgeous fabric put on, which is kind of botanical. And to me, it reminds me of my gardens and the flowers you see in the garden. I grow different types of chilies to make chili sauce and things. So we've got that on the sofa. And we've got lots of different really kind of pretty flowers. Obviously, we've got hops, as you can see up here. These are a real talking point. A lot of my friends had never seen these before. Especially in houses. So a lot of people like to ask questions about them. They're relatively fresh. We only put these up maybe about 2 weeks ago, and they are slowly turning from the most gorgeous deep green, and they will go over the next couple of weeks into a really kind of warm, orangey kind of autumnal feeling. To me, putting these up kind of marks the start of autumn in a way. It's as if, you know, when you put your Christmas tree up and you get that gorgeous pine smell and it kind of makes you feel all kind of festive. Well, to me, these make me feel kind of like warm and cozy and autumnal. And they will stay up for probably about a year, maybe 2 years, if we don't have any more building work done, because they can get a little dusty. But yeah, they look lovely. This piece here, I adore it. We bought this on our first family holiday in Venice with our 1-year-old daughter. Most people come back with masks and things like that. And we walked into this, I don't even know where it was. You never find these shops again there, do you? But we walked into this gorgeous little Venetian shop where they kind of hand make all of these things. And I saw these hot air balloons and I loved it. And I thought we have to have something like that in the cottage hanging up. And it makes us really happy when we see it. My daughter loves it. And you know, it's got a little basket here that I could, in theory, pop things in, maybe little fairies for her, you never know. This moon, I have popped it here because I just kind of like the vibe and the feeling. It kind of gives me like a moonlit like trip up in a hot air balloon vibe. I grew up with this. My mum, probably where a lot of my whimsy comes from, she had this in the house that I grew up in. It was going up the stairs into my bedroom, and maybe 2 months ago she said, you know, would you like it? And I thought, definitely, I have to have my little kind of handmade moon up in the cottage. So that's what we've got there. Curtains, people always comment on our curtains, and I think that they are lovely. We've gone for very thick kind of insulating thermal curtains because the cottage gets cold in the winter. It also stays quite cool in the summer, so there are pros and cons, but in the winter we do get quite chilly in here. So keeping the drafts and the cold air out is really important. So we've got nice thick curtains. They've got a William Morris print on, and they are kind of like off bluey grey, which I think it kind of lightens the room a bit. We didn't want something really bright and colourful in here, purely because we've got that with the sofas, we've got that with, you know, our rug and other aspects, and having something like this is just a little bit more delicate and soft. If we come over here, we've got I've got 3 of these sorts of cabinets. This one is my newest one. This has got games in and things like that. So it's got all of our board games in. It's got my daughter's jigsaws. And yeah, it's Indian. So we bought this from a lovely shop called Artique in Tetbury. He's a family friend of ours, and I absolutely adore his shop. I love all of the furniture in there, and we went specifically to get this. It's just a different thing. It's unusual. And I actually think they really fit kind of the cottage aesthetic. Over here, we had a little bit of a nightmare with this section, to be totally transparent with you. So here we had a lot of damp issues, and we think that may well have been down to the fact that the fireplace used to come out to about here where I'm standing. It did fall out the wall, unfortunately. So I say unfortunately, it's actually a good thing, because then when our builders came to kind of fix everything, we uncovered this amazing fireplace, which I believe would have been the kind of original place to the cottage for cooking and things like that. This may well have been a kitchen, I'm not sure, but it's nice to kind of think about who did live here and what they used to do, and I feel like I've brought a little bit of history back to the cottage. We've actually got an electric log burner. The reason that we've gone for that, and we've gone for an electric one that looks traditional, is because we are in a thatched cottage, and I don't really need to say, but you know, I think it would be testing fate if we were to have fires on all the time. So we've gone for an electric log burner, which does the job just fine, and I think it looks really cute, and it keeps the space warm as well, which is really nice. When we had the fireplace exposed, there was this paint on the brickwork, so you can see here, and the builder said to me, do you want to leave that, because it looks really cool, and it's kind of like a reminder of the past and of what was here. And I like that there's different tones and colours in there, and that's being picked out by all of the accents in the cottage. So like the hops, you've got the fabric on the sofas with all the different colours, and it sort of speaks through and kind of talks a kind of a story almost around the room, which I think is quite nice. This painting over here behind the lamp is of Avebury, where I grew up, and I suppose a lot of my whimsy and uniqueness has come from, so you can get a kind of sense for what that was like. It's a really beautiful and unique place, and we like to be reminded of it and visit there lots as well, so having that in the cottage is, you know, very special to us. I guess we've also got a talking point here, which are the beams. When we were looking for a cottage to come and buy, I really wanted beams. So to come in here and find these was just amazing. It's possible that these beams were used on a ship and were then brought back into the country and then repurposed into these cottages, which would have been probably workers' cottages. And so we've got really old higgledy-piggledy beams which have got, you know, lots of holes in, and they're in funny shapes. But yeah, they really add kind of depth and warmth to the room, and I don't know, they're just fun and kind of make me happy. So I collect antique books, and I have done for, I don't know how long, for a very, very, very long time. So this section here when we moved in was awful. It was mouldy and damp, and it had all sorts of bugs. It was not a great space. So anyway, we renovated this, and we've had these shelves put in, and we wanted something light, airy and fresh, and that kind of would just be a little bit more modern and work with the kind of cottage, but also at the same time it's not taking away from areas like the fireplace, because you come in and you look at the fireplace, you don't necessarily draw your eye over here. This is kind of very much how I am and have always been. Lots of Jane Austen, Charlotte Bronte, obsessed, love them. They're so, if you've not read them, I really recommend going and picking, definitely a Jane Austen, going and picking one up and giving it a read. These are some of my antique books along here. The green books, actually, a lot of people don't know this, but the green books, I'll get this one out. It's okay for me to touch it before anyone worries after what I say. But they actually, the green is made with arsenic. So to be holding them and to be touching them on a regular basis, it would go into your hands, and it's not necessarily a good thing. But I found this one kind of ironic because, you know, it's a child's companion book, but then the covers are made of arsenic, which is just, it's a part of history, and it's mind-boggling to me, but we know now. And yeah, I find these sorts of things kind of fascinating. We've got a book here which I think is really funny. It's called The Book of Rare Vegetables. And my husband and I, when we've gone through it and just read some of the things in here, you know, there's bell peppers, there's aubergines, there's ginger. It just makes me laugh, because those are things that we all have kind of nowadays in our everyday diets, or we grow in the garden, or even if we don't do any of those things, we at least know about them and we don't really consider them rare. So, you know, those are the reasons I love these sorts of old books and the old historical books. We've got fairytale books, Hans Christian Andersen. We've got Grimm's fairy tales, a little bit more spooky. And I also collect, which shocks a lot of people, but I do love them, crystals. And I collect them because I just think they are just so gorgeous. This one I gifted myself, actually. I think it was just after I had my daughter. And it's a piece of labradorite, and they are so shiny and beautiful. There's a lady in our village that's kitchen counters are made entirely out of this, and whilst I adore it, I just can't imagine having that in my kitchen. So I like to have a kind of little spot, kind of like part of it in the living room. I think it's just super fun. So when guests come over and step into the cottage, I want people to feel instantly calm. I want them to feel relaxed and at home. It's important to me people do make themselves at home when they come over. You know, I've got a fully stocked fridge, I've got a pantry full of snacks, and there's always coffee and copious amounts of tea. We love tea in this house. I love baking, and there's always cookies in the dining room for my daughter. I like making cakes, so when people come over, I like them to just feel at ease and relaxed. We have friends come and visit quite a lot from the city, and one of the things they always say is how refreshed they feel when they've been here. They can go to spas, they can go, you know, on little holidays, but they always say when they come here, they leave with kind of a sense of calm and like peace in how they've kind of felt. And I think that helps by the fact that we are surrounded by nature. We've got lovely woodland walks, we've got fields, there's lots of farm animals, and it's ultimately very quiet. If you're going to get woken up at night here, it's probably by an owl or a fox or maybe something else like that, or maybe one of my cats jumping on you. But ultimately I want people to feel happy and just at home. So this room we use as a kind of everything room. We've got our dining table in here, we've got my husband's drinks cabinet, I've got my daughter's toys and my craft cupboard. I want to talk to you a bit about, well, a lot of things. Firstly, the drinks cabinet, because I get so many questions about this. Where's it from? It's super unusual. You don't often see things like this in this shape and this size. This is another one of my gorgeous Indian pieces of furniture, and I absolutely adore it. It just fits so beautifully here. We've had this for quite a few years. We had it even before we moved into the cottage, and I just love the distressed kind of look on the paint. It's got really beautiful knobs on. We've not changed anything on this. It's got a really old kind of gnarly bit of wood here for opening it, and then all down the door it's got beautiful carvings of flowers and different things like that. The other thing that I thought was really fun, when we did expose our fireplace in our living room, the colours that were in the brickwork there really mimicked this, so it's kind of bringing that kind of vibe in here. That was totally unintentional, but it's one of those things that you're like, oh yeah, we'll keep that. I really like that. The wallpaper in here is, I believe it's Lucille Annabelle, and I love it. It was, I think it was one of those times when I got the wallpaper and my husband was a bit like, not sure if that's going to be too kind of grandma-y, too much. And I was like, no, I'll be fine. And as soon as I put it up, he was like, it's like a whimsical fairy tale garden. As soon as you walk in here, you walk down our little hallway and you're kind of met with the drinks cabinet and my grandmother's Tiffany lamp, which I absolutely adore. It's really nice having things like that from relatives. And yeah, it's just, the wallpaper has just transformed this room. I would say for the first year, this room was just used as a bit of a dumping ground. It didn't have the wallpaper in. We would shut the door and we would just throw away the key and not come in here. And I mean, it's a bit sad to think that we did that for the first year, but I guess that is kind of sometimes what happens when you buy a new property and you start renovating and moving. This is a new door that we've got in the cottage. They were originally hard, what were they? They were like hardboard or something. They were just not nice doors. They didn't match the aesthetic of the cottage. They squeaked a lot, which was not great, especially when you've got a baby. It did wake her up a few times. And do you know what? They just didn't really match. So we've got these nice old, they're not old, but these nice new wooden doors, which kind of match the cottage aesthetic a little bit better, I think. This is a little bit of a kind of like messy area for me. This is my craft cupboard, and it's also got kind of more sentimentally valuable things in. So it's got my collection of Beatrix Potter books, which I've inherited from, I say inherited, my dad's given them to me. My dad and my mum grew up huge readers, and so from a young age, and they've collected all of their childhood books, and then they've given them to me, which I think is really special. We've got baskets of just craft things in there. I love painting and drawing and doing stickers with my daughter. And this cabinet as well is another Indian piece of furniture. I wish more people had these in their homes. I think they are just so gorgeous and stunning. Again, it's from Artique. That's where I've got all 3 of them from. And this one's got tiles in it. And I really like the tiles. They've got really cute, like, almost floral shell-like, I guess, little patterns in. And I just think that's so unique and unusual. You don't often see cabinets kind of like this. It's got a really nice, like, lock on it here. And on the top, it's just full of my crafty clutter, my sewing box and that sort of thing. This table here, this was made by a friend of my family, and it's cherry wood. And we've had this for many years. Because the cottage is quite small, we do struggle with getting larger and certain types of pieces of furniture in. So when we moved in and we brought this with us, I was so pleased and relieved to see it fit in. We can pull it out and we can have 4 chairs around it if we need to. But a lot of the time in the winter or when it's raining, we'll come and have dinner in here as a family, which I think's very nice and special. Shall we head on into our kitchen? So this is our kitchen, and for a cottage, it's unusually large. I love my kitchen now. I never thought I'd be one of those women that loved a kitchen, but I love my kitchen. I love baking and cooking with my family, and I drink so much tea, so I do spend quite a lot of time in here. I guess especially having lots of animals and a child as well, you do end up just spending quite a lot of time, you know, in the kitchen. This did not look like this when we moved in. We just had a couple of cupboards there, and then that ran down to here. We had plastic worktops which had weirdly kind of gone rotten. I'm not really sure what they were made of, but they were not great. So last year we did a full renovation. My husband and I took the entire kitchen out and got kind of plastering all of the walls and painting, sorting all of the kind of damp problems out that we had, and the renovation started to take shape. The kitchen units are handmade and bespoke to the cottage. They are made by a company called Nook. So I think they're called Hello Nook, but they are in England, so they are local to us. And we really wanted something that took advantage of the ceiling height. So a normal kitchen cupboard would maybe come to about kind of here, and I wanted to kind of add that extra shelf in. So I can show you in this cupboard over here. You can see we've got a lot more space and a lot more storage. So the normal cupboard would probably end about there, and we've added an extra shelf in. So for example, in this one, I've got kind of my picnic set up there, and we've got dinner plates, bowls, that sort of thing. And on the top, we've added in the kind of alcoving, which kind of elevates the space a little bit. And at Christmas, I string lots of fairy lights all around there, and the whole place is just full of kind of unique foliage and that sort of thing, kind of bringing the outside in. The tiles that we've used are, again, they're made locally in the UK, and they're from Original Style. And I've gone for, I believe these are the Daisy Japur print, and I think they are just so beautiful, and very cottagey, very, bringing the outside in. That's all, I'll keep harping on about that because I think it's so nice to have, and we all know nature and being outside is good for us, so maybe to bring that inside, I don't know, maybe it just helps a little bit with everything. I've had this since university, so it's very, very, very old. So I had this in Oxford with me, and it's seen better days, but I've repainted it, lacquered it over the years, and it's just a cute little bread bin, which, you know, I can swivel round. It's got, on the other side, we've got a duck, but my daughter's obsessed with rabbits, so we have to have the rabbits. Over here, I like baking a lot. So my grandmother, oh, bless her, before she passed away, she said to me and my husband, I'm going to give you this mixer, which is a KitchenAid mixer, and every baker dreams of having them. And she said, this is a wedding present. My husband hadn't even proposed by then. We weren't married, we weren't thinking of anything like that. Luckily, I'm married to him now. We have, you know, a child together, we're very happy. But it's really nice having this, and we both sort of smile a little bit every time we use it because it reminds us of her and I guess her approval of my husband. This is a kind of crunchy topped apple and cinnamon cake. They're a little bit unusual. So on the top it's got kind of a apple crumble kind of texture, and then inside it will be full of apples which are from the orchard, which we really like. These are cooking and eating apples. They're all over the cottage because we have so many of them. And these ones are actually from my parents-in-law, and the plums as well from their garden. Where all of the family are just so big on growing our own fruit and vegetables. We try our best, and I just think it's so nice to have them kind of on hand to just snack throughout the day or throw together to make a apple and cinnamon cake. I'm going to show you over here because everyone always asks me about this piece of furniture, which is my shelving for all my mugs. I'm quite particular with this shelf. It has to have my round mugs on. It has to have my cozy mugs, as I call them. They're so nice to hold and drink a coffee in, or if it's been a hell of a day, my husband will say, do you want a tea in one of those? And I'll have an Earl Grey in one. And you know it's been a busy day or my daughter's been awake if there's an entire shelf empty. This piece of furniture was actually found on the street in a town called Devizes, which is in Wiltshire. And I'd wanted something to go on the wall for ages like this. And the cost of so many things when you go into kind of shops and things, they are very expensive. So I saw that and I said to my husband, that's on the street, I must have that. And it was in a kind of like old junkie shop. And I went in and I said to the lady in there, who was very eccentric, I was like, how much is that? Can I have it please? And she was like, oh, someone's coming to collect it. And I was like, oh, have they paid yet? And she went, no, they're late, they haven't arrived yet. Tried to phone them, anyway, couldn't get hold of them. So it's in my house now. I think it was £40. I think we might have told my dad it was 30 because he's an antiques dealer. So we always like to price things down a bit for dad, but sorry dad, it was about 40. And I adore it. It's fun. It's cozy and practical at the same time. Drawers full of all those little knick-knacky things like batteries and stuff that you use day to day. The wallpaper, this is a controversial one, having wallpaper in a kitchen, and I know that. The wallpaper, I am obsessed with strawberries, and I just think that it looks so lovely. You'll have seen when we looked in the cupboard, strawberry. It's kind of vines of strawberries kind of going up to the ceiling and coming all the way back down. We did have a little bit of an issue because we've got our dishwasher here, and I've since made this curtain. My mum and I put this together and my husband's put it up on the wall. But this curtain is both practical and aesthetic. The practicality of it is when I open it and I go to open the dishwasher, it protects the wallpaper from, you know, you just tip your cup in, oh gosh, it's splashed on the floor, it's fine. But if it goes on the wall and there's wallpaper there, that's not great. So we've made this to go over, and it also hides it and gives it a more cottagey kind of feel and look. I did re-wallpaper this one section here, purely because it got so damaged from the dishwasher and I hadn't treated the wall with decorator's varnish or anything, which has since been done. So we're okay with that and we haven't had any problems since. This little lamp up here is a Pookie, I love the name of their company, Pookie, a Pookie lamp. And it is, you'll see, it's rechargeable. So if we have power cuts, which we do all the time in the countryside, I've got a couple of lamps dotted around the cottage that are rechargeable, and we've got spare bulbs for them, which means if there's a blackout, we can at least see each other. And, you know, there's been more times than I care to remember that we've had power cuts. This section over here is really important to me because I can look out into the garden and see my daughter and the dogs playing. It's a very nice wide sink. I always wanted a butler sink like this that kind of leans over the cupboards. We've got a really, really pretty tap here, which I love, and it is also, this is so novel to me, I'd never had one. It's a hot water tap, and I just think that's so fun and so useful as well, especially with the amount of tea we drink. This cute little picture over here of hedgehogs with hunter boots is an original by a friend of mine called Brooke. She's Brooke Marie, and she does these most gorgeous, gorgeous pictures. You'll have seen one again in our dining room, which has got my daughter in it. And I think she's just such an incredible artist, and I love having her work around the house. It makes me happy. She made this calendar as well. If we have a look over here, this section is kind of the pantry-esque kind of pet section. So we've got the cat food, the dog food, and we've got my gorgeous big kind of pantry, which is a bit messy, but you kind of get the idea. It's where all the food and all of the kind of like day-to-day things go. I always wanted one of these, and I saved and saved and saved. And eventually we managed to afford it, and it's just great because it's where all my baking instruments go. I've got too many probably kind of rolling pins, as you can see, all made by my father-in-law and my late grandfather, but it just is a great way of kind of storing everything in a kitchen when you maybe don't have the cupboard space. What else should I talk about? The lights, these are new as well. We did have some similar pendant lamps in, but they were very industrial in the sense of they were silver, chrome shiny ones, and I didn't really feel like they worked for a cottage. So when I saw these ones, I was like, yes, we'll get those, and I've had these put in, and I love them. And I'm really lucky to have a space like this in an old cottage with such high ceilings. I think the ceilings are about 9 feet tall, and I just think it really adds something to it. And you know, at Christmas we have lights, strings of fairy lights everywhere, and more things like this, and it's just a really like lovely space. So we're in my back garden, and this space when we moved in was nothing like this. It was an overgrown kind of jungle, I suppose. There was an enormous brambly rose over here, where I've now got my little greenhouse, and we didn't actually know we had this space. The big brambly rose we had came out to about here, so we actually just thought, well, there's nothing there. It's kind of is what it is. And slowly but surely, over the next kind of couple of weeks and months of my mum and I hacking it back, getting covered in cuts and bruises from this huge brambly rose, we uncovered this huge area of garden. Well, it feels huge to me. It might not be huge to some people, but when you've got a cottage and a cottage garden, this is pretty big. And I'd always wanted a little greenhouse. And my husband very kindly put this one up and together for me. I absolutely adore it. I think it is so, so sweet and so pretty, and I do spend an awful lot of my time out here. All of the seeds, all of the flowers in the garden I've grown from seed, pretty much. Most of the dahlias have been grown from seed, and I like to grow lots of different types of vegetables. So I've currently got things like aubergines growing in here. I've got cucumbers, I've got unusual tomatoes, and it's just really good fun to kind of come out here of, you know, a morning or an evening and pick things that you've kind of grown yourself. We've got lots of different other things like an apple tree. This is a unique apple. It actually is, when you cut into it, it is pink inside, and that's new this year. So we've only had one fruit off of it, which it wasn't brilliant. It didn't taste great, but it looked gorgeous. And we are hoping that with a little bit more rain and maybe a little bit more kind of intermittent sunshine, they might do really well next year, and we can maybe plant that out in our field, which is out the back. All of these are kind of different roses, so they're sort of going over a little bit for the autumn now, but we've got white ones and pink ones. This is a brand new rose here from David Austin, which is a kind of pink candy stripe one. It's called the King's Rose, and it was made for King Charles, and I was so honoured to get to see that unveiled at the Chelsea Flower Show this year, and then to get my hands on one is like every gardener's dream. It was my dream, so I was so happy to get that. Over here is a little bit more floral. We've got lots of very beautiful, very fragrant pink roses. I think you probably see a theme running in my home and my garden is pink flowers. These are dahlias. This one's just come out and it's very unusual. It's got lots of pretty different kind of leaves and patterns on it. This one here is a brilliant one for kind of cut flowers and drying as well. I like to have this one in the cottage, so you'll probably see little bits of little vases dotted around, and this is one of the dahlias that I like to use because it just grows and grows. You can see we've got lots of buds coming here. And generally this is just a really nice space to kind of be and enjoy time. We've got a little patio area down here which I'll take you to. And down here I've got my potting bench, and every single day since I think April we have eaten dinner outside. We have been so lucky not to have lots and lots of rain, which we did last year in England, but this year has been quite dry. So we all sit here, we'll have my parents come over, we'll have friends, and we'll sit here and we'll do pizza oven pizzas, or we'll kind of cook different things from the garden, and we'll just enjoy having time out here in the evening until the bats start to come out and the sun goes down and we head inside. This over here is my potting bench. I've got some really unusual plants here. This plant here is a really unusual one. It's actually a type of oregano, and I think it's called, I'm probably going to get it wrong, I think it's Kent Beauty or something like that, and that was a gift from my mother for my birthday. I think it is just fun and stunning and a little bit unusual. This one's a Fireworks pelargonium. I love them. I've loved pelargoniums for many years. This is another one that's a little bit more kind of, it's a bit more kind of a creeping one, and it smells really minty, which you just kind of don't always expect with these sorts of plants. So that's good fun. And generally, yeah, we just spend a lot of time out here, and I love gardening and I love being outside in nature and bringing that inside into my home as well. So shall we head on inside and have a look at other parts of the cottage? So in cottages, the one thing we found when we were looking to buy was there's not often very much bathroom space. I remember one house we went to, we would call it the cottage with no bathrooms but 3 bathrooms, because it had a toilet in one, a bath in another and a sink in another, and I just thought, how weird. So when we bought this one, it has this small bathroom here, but it's fine, it's practical, it does everything for us. It's got a bath, it's got, you know, the sink, the loo, everything like that. We did have to renovate this one again and change everything. It was electric blue when we moved in, and it had dolphins all over it. I grew up with one of the cottages that we lived in before my mum and dad moved to Avebury. It was a farmhouse and it had a blue bedroom in it, and I just thought, you know what, I'm going to embrace that, and I had dolphins in the room, and that was for about a year. Never again, I said to myself, would I have a blue room. So we did renovate in here, and I've put in Burlington shower and sink, and it's just so lovely. We've got a really unique sink actually. I know it's probably a little bit novel for some people or me, but this is so useful for when you're cleaning your teeth. It's a little water fountain. I just think that's really fun. It swivels, and that's been great for my daughter as well. I have also wallpapered in here, which is over here behind the door. Now the wallpaper here is protected with a decorator's varnish. A lot of people were like, gosh, that's brave. But when I found out you could then varnish over wallpaper to protect it, which basically means it's then wipeable and it's gonna survive, I just thought, let's kind of go with it. So yeah, that's our bathroom. Shall we go on and have a little look upstairs? So this little doorway takes us upstairs. I like having the doorway here because it just keeps a little bit of a draft out of the hallway going up the stairs. So we've decorated all of the staircase. It was just a big blank kind of white wall, and I wanted to add something a little bit more cozy to it because it is such a high ceiling. It goes up to the point of the thatched roof, that it kind of made sense to just decorate it. And I know a lot of big grand houses have them, but I love them so much. So I've put a little like picture gallery in here, and you can see lots of different artworks. We've got original drawings of our old cottage, which a lovely friend of mine has done. And then we've got just cute little animal pictures. We've got a map of Wiltshire. My husband's obsessed with maps, so we had to have a map here, and I love it as well. And just art of all of the animals. And then we've got this really pretty like lavender wallpaper coming up the stairs, which I did all myself, with a dado rail, just to kind of segregate it off from the very, very tall ceiling. So yeah, let's go upstairs and have a look in our bedrooms. So prior to buying the cottage, I would say my style was a little bit more toned back. The kind of vibe and the feeling's always been there. I grew up in Avebury, which is an amazing place. It's got a Neolithic stone circle. It's so unusual and different and was amazing. And I'd wake up every morning to see a stone circle out my window and was just inspired by all of the different people that visited from all over the world. So my bedroom growing up was very similar to kind of how my home is today. I feel between kind of leaving home and going into the big wide world and, you know, moving to university, moving to London, and then moving back to the Cotswolds before we settled here in Wiltshire, I kind of lost my way in my style a little bit. And I guess it wasn't until I really embraced the fact that it's okay to be yourself and it's okay to be a little bit different at times and do things you like for your home, because at the end of the day you live there and that's where you're probably going to spend a lot of your time. So I like to have a space that feels safe and tranquil and lovely for my family, whilst also being functional. So to kind of embrace this kind of whimsicalness has taken a great weight off my shoulders, actually, you know. Not having to feel that I have to have very muted tones everywhere, which is lovely in the right setting, but it's just not me. So yeah, I really just adore this, and I'm really happy to embrace the unusual aspect of interior design, I suppose. So I have a background in film and social media and all sorts of kind of creative things. Prior to becoming a full-time content creator, I worked at the BBC. I worked for a big global company doing their social media channels. And even if I go far enough back to my time when my husband and I lived in a tiny, tiny flat in London, I was working at the BBC and also the Victoria and Albert Museum, which in a way kind of brings itself into what I do now, which is working full-time as a content creator. I've been working full-time for the last 3 years. It sort of just happened, I guess. My social media channels started to take off and started to do well, and having had a career in that industry, I kind of thought, let's give it a go and see how things kind of progress. My style's quite whimsical and a little bit kind of fairy tale, whilst also bringing in aspects that I think a lot of people have generally day to day in their homes, but maybe don't quite know how to style it, or that, you know, you can go that little bit further with things like putting hops in or popping dried flowers around or having florals. It doesn't need to be over the top and kind of too grandma-y, I guess. So when I started posting and sharing that on social media, I realised that there was a lot of people that had questions around interior design and styling and home, but also gardening and what it's like to actually live day to day in a cottage like this. And that, I guess, sort of snowballed, and it kind of led me to where I am today, which is working full-time as a content creator. This is, I guess it was once the nursery and it's now my 3-year-old's bedroom, and it has always been and probably always will be one of my favourite places in the house, probably until she's a teenager and then I don't get any say, do I? Although that has started already. This room, I have decorated it in a kind of like woodland theme with kind of cosy touches of friendly little bears, leaves, and things like that. This wallpaper is a woodland wallpaper, which is specifically for children's nurseries. It's from Dunelm, and it was so cheap. It was like, I think £10 a roll, and my mum used 2 rolls. My mum did this because when my mum wallpapered in here, I was literally having a baby. So my mum has very kindly wallpapered this on her own. And it's possibly where my daughter's obsession with rabbits came from, possibly. Over the years, this room's changed slightly as she's obviously got older and things. We've got lots of pretty artwork in here. This is one of my favourites. I've had this for as long as I can remember. It was a gift, and it's a little princess castle with unicorns, swans, and then it's got sparkles and things on it, which I really, really like. This little teddy bear over in the corner was mine in my nursery when I was growing up, so it's quite special kind of having that here kind of for her. This little fox, when we bought the hot air balloon that's downstairs in our living room in Venice, they had these cute little like children's masks in the shop, and she was really taken with the fox. I mean, she was only 1, but I was like, wow, it's her first ever holiday abroad. I have to get her a little Venetian mask, and it's just a cute little fox. We've got this basket over here which has got her toys in, and I adore it. It was a present for her 3rd birthday from my parents. It's a little castle, and yeah, it's just so sweet because she can lift it up. That again was Dunelm, and I think it's so lovely. We've got a floral rocking horse, which I really like these sorts of things because it's a little bit different. That was just a Laura Ashley print, I think, from Mamas and Papas, if I'm remembering rightly. And she still even will rock on it now at the age of 3. So I don't have the heart to take it out of her room until she says, Mummy, do you know what? I think I might be done. We call this over here her princess bed. I've put this really cute little kind of canopé above it, and I did it as a surprise for her. And I put her little woodland lights round and a little fairy that she'd actually picked herself. I think she was maybe 2 at that point. And she said to me, Mummy, the fairies have just made me a princess bed. So she now, it's a little tip for any parents, she now loves going to bed. I don't know how long this will last for, but we're about a month in, so I'm quite happy with that. Collection of some of her rabbits here. Which she loves, and this throw, which I just love the colours in it. This is a wool throw that's just gorgeous for her bed, and I'm hoping the sort of thing that she will have for kind of forever in her home. Maybe one day she'll be doing something similar to this, telling people about this lovely throw that her mum got for her when she was born. But it also is practical because it does get really cold in our cottage, and it does keep her nice and warm at night time. This old chair that we've got here, I'll take my blanket off. I actually made this for her when she was a baby, but this old chair that we've got here, it was mine when I was growing up, and it was my desk chair. It saw me through lots and lots of kind of hard times of studying. It also saw me through when I first decided that makeup was a good thing. It was not back then. Thick black eyeliner, you know, the works, we've all been there. And yeah, it's now in her room, and my husband and I will take turns sitting in it, reading her bedtime stories. And it's just, I don't know, it's just really special to have something like that in here that was once, I guess, mine. Over here, this is kind of the fun section of the room because we've got the ball pit, which Mummy is not allowed to ever get rid of. She loves to come and jump in here, and she'll get her clothes out for herself in the morning. It's just fun. The things we find in there sometimes I just have to laugh at. Sometimes there'll be a pine cone in there or a tree branch from something she's found in the garden, you know. Over here, this is her little kind of picture wall. I think it's really important to have like things like this in children's bedrooms that they can kind of look at and enjoy. This one I believe my mum made when she was about 14. So it's a cute little dog, and we obviously love animals in our family, so it's nice to have that on the wall. This one here was a gift. It says on it, "To Tabby, love Grandma," and that was a gift to her from my mother-in-law, so from Daddy Grandma, and I think it's so pretty. So my husband's side of the family absolutely love nature as well, and they are huge into kind of bird watching, and when I was pregnant we went to Skomer Island, which I know as Puffin Island, and so kind of ever since then I've been like really wanting to get my daughter to go back there actually. So when my mother-in-law made that for my daughter, it was really special and really sweet to kind of have, because it's kind of a memory of something for me but also my daughter and her. This is another one that my dad had commissioned. This is meant to be me actually, and it's meant to be my mum and my dad, and then there's me kind of like reading under a tree. It's very like whimsical interpretation, but I think it's really special, and so I've kind of gifted that to my daughter to have in her bedroom. Another piece here that my mum made in 1970, so she'd have been maybe 8, something like that. And that's her old cat Cindy, and I love having things like this in the room because it's kind of inspirational for my daughter. I think a lot of the time children can kind of feel like, gosh, I'm not as good at drawing as mummy or daddy, or I'm not as good as this, but when I show her things like that of what she will be able to do one day, you know, Grandma did this when she was only little, it's really special. These little rabbits up here were a gift to her from my dad. They're old antique rabbits. And they're just quite cute, so we have them up on the shelf. This was my mum's. They are Beatrix Potter. We absolutely love Beatrix Potter, and as you can see with all the books, and I've shown you some of them, and so it's nice to have those up on display for her. I think we should probably head through and go into my bedroom now. So this is our other bedroom, my bedroom, my husband's bedroom, and yeah, it's really important for me, I guess, to have a fresh room, like I've said. And when we moved in, I had a very little baby and I was really quite unwell. And so I spent a lot of time up here. So having somewhere tranquil and peaceful that I could lie in bed, look out the windows, and just rest and kind of feel better was really important to me. So having a massive bed, because my husband is so tall, it was important, so he can stretch out and lie out and things, but it's also just for comfort as well, I guess. The wallpaper in here, this one is, I love it. It's just little kind of like blue forget-me-nots all over the wall. It's not too much, it's quite delicate and dainty, and a little bit kind of toned back, I guess, upstairs. It's airier and brighter and fresher. I guess you can probably feel that and see that. And so I like to kind of reflect that in the decor that we've got in the cottage. All the furniture in here is from my parents. This was a gift from my dad. It was originally from a friend of theirs' house. It's not antique, but it has been, my dad has distressed it, painted it and added old kind of knobs on and latches and things to kind of make it look older, and it matches the colour quite nicely to the little forget-me-nots on the wallpaper. What else have we got here? This gorgeous jewellery box is a gift from my husband. It currently just has lots of beads and things in it, but I always wanted a jewellery box. You know, you see, Downton Abbey, and you see in all of these kind of like gorgeous historical kind of English programmes. So that was a really nice gift from my husband. Over here, because we live quite near Bath, and I love Jane Austen. And my family have got a connection to Jane Austen as well, which is quite interesting. So I'm not even going to guess how many greats it is, but very far back, there is a relative of ours who was acquainted with her, and we found evidence that he was inspiration for Mr. Darcy. So I now no longer can fancy Mr. Darcy because that would be weird. So yeah, I love kind of Jane Austen and like all of that kind of history and background, and so have this little thing here that I got on a trip to Bath with my friend Lauren, and it's just got a couple of the different books and a little portrait of her in the middle, and it's got all these pretty flowers in which tie in really, really nicely kind of with the wallpaper. This shelf up here has my wedding flowers on. When we got married, I wanted dried flowers so I could keep them forever. And they've lasted really well. They've coloured to go kind of like harvesty orange, autumnal orange and yellows. They were very vibrant and pink, and they had lots of different hues of kind of colouring. So I've kept them up there on the shelf. The shelf again, I'm just going to just say this with everything. It's from my parents. It was in one of their hallways upstairs in their house. And I think it was something that was going to be gotten rid of. And I said, can I have that, please? I love it. So my mum was like, go and ask your dad. So I went and asked Dad, and he said, yes, you can have that. And I like it because I can have fairy tale books on there. I've got my wicker bags here. This one is my beach bag and my kind of going to the spa bag, which I wish happened more often than it does, but there we are. And then it's got my sun hats on, which I do use a lot. This one I got minutes before my husband proposed to me in Malta. We were driving around. It was actually a little island called Gozo, and we were driving around, and I got so sunburnt that I looked like a lobster. It was unreal. And we just happened to see a guy by the side of the road selling hats, and I thought, you know what, I'll get one. It was about €4, something like that. And it looks like something that Elizabeth Bennet would wear. And I love it. It's just really nice to have something kind of like that that's a little bit more kind of unusual. So we've also got this dresser, which is where my perfumes and kind of all my things kind of are. My mum stenciled this, and it was the first piece of furniture my parents ever bought together many years ago, probably 35, 40 years ago. And I guess a little bit like my daughter inheriting my old chair, I've now, I inherited this from my mum, she gave it to me. And I had it growing up. It had all my clothes in the house that I grew up in, and it now has jumpers and things like that in for kind of colder wintry months. It's got a matching kind of mirror on the top, which is lovely, and I've always had that. And I'm possibly wonder it will go to my daughter and be in her bedroom, which I think is quite sweet. I love my chair. I had this reupholstered in a kind of white English rose fabric from Sophie Allpott. The chair itself, I believe, was a relative of mine who passed away and I inherited. And it used to have a very old like paisley print on, but it had been scratched to pieces by not my cats, but I think their cats. And I've had it reupholstered, and I just think it fits in really nicely with the kind of colour scheme and the freshness. Cushions made by my mum. This one's a William Morris print, which matches our blinds in here. And this one I quite like because it's kind of a magnolia one that kind of matches everything else. The blinds in here are William Morris as well, and those are insulated again for the kind of colder months. Over here, we've got our built-in wardrobes, and these weren't here when we moved in, as I've mentioned. They go back really quite far. And there used to be quite a kind of like rotten, old, not very nice, like built-in wardrobe here. So I got that taken out. And for quite a while, we lived with no curtains, couldn't afford to get curtains put up, couldn't afford to get this done. Piles of clothes over here, and the rail, which was for the clothes, over the window with a blanket over it so no one could see me. So that was fun. But I really like that they're done now, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. So this piece of artwork is it's an original my dad had painted for us when we got married, and it's got my cats in. It's got Boris here, who's currently in the bed, and it's got Pepper, who's currently sat on the pillow. But that's where we got married. This is the church. It's called Alpen Manor, and it's in Gloucestershire in the Cotswolds. And it's just, it's so beautiful and colourful, and it makes us really happy to have kind of in our bedroom as well, because it's something for us, it's our space, so it's really nice to have. My daughter, my husband, bought me these for my birthday, which are little bumblebees going up the wall. I and I quite like them, and I think we'll probably add more things over the years as we lived here. You know, we've only been here for a few years, so the house is still kind of, I guess in a way, it will always be evolving and changing as we do. But I love these little bumblebees that he got for us. These little cabinets, we've got one over here, and we've got one on this side, our bedside cabinets. Those are, again, from my parents. I grew up with those, and they were in my bedroom, and I've just brought them with me. My husband really liked them, so I brought them with me. And they've got kind of suns, moons and stars on, and this beautiful kind of like ivy leaf pattern down the sides. They have got lots of space in, so we can just put all of our wash bags and all of our things like that when we go on holiday in them. And I think they're just so unusual and beautiful. I think a lot of people would probably not expect us to have something so dark in our cottage, but I like them, and I like the kind of like difference that they bring. They're not just kind of like normal bedside table. So I think if you're starting out and wanting to create something kind of whimsical and magical and fairytale-esque for your space, and you think, but I don't live in a cottage, I don't live in the countryside, well, that doesn't matter. When I was at university, I lived in a new kind of apartment with friends, and we all had kind of dormitory rooms, and they are all just copy-paste, very much the same. However, in my room, I incorporated different things like fairy lights, and I would put, you know, a fallen branch I found in the winter and weave things through it, and like hang little like leaves or baubles or whatever it might be on it to kind of give it a little bit of a rustic charm and aesthetic. And people would always come into my bedroom and just be like, wow, it's so beautiful in here. And I always thought, but your room could be as well. It's just what you kind of put into it and decorate. You could go outside, go to your local park and, you know, forage some branches or leaves or even some flowers, but obviously get permission, and take them home and dry them in your home, and it just adds that difference in that you kind of might be looking for. It doesn't have to be elaborate, huge things like knocking a fireplace out or even putting hops up. It can be as simple as putting a string of fairy lights around a branch and hanging that somewhere in your home to make you feel warm and cozy. It's been so lovely having you here, Homeworthy. Thank you so much for visiting my little cottage, but it is time for me to go and make a cup of tea now, so bye!
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.